So it's a new month, it's a new monthly theme. And this month our theme is inclusion in action. It's like makes me smile because that's my life. And it's your life too, whether you know it or not. Our talk title for today originally was Let's Get Together and Feel All Right. And the let's get together part resonated with me. It was the and feel all right that was the challenge for me. So I switched up the title to Come On In, the Water's Fine. Because what I know about this little thing called feeling all right is that that is the very thing that can keep us from living inclusion. We like to feel all right. And sometimes living inclusively doesn't feel all right. It feels awkward. It feels messy. It feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels downright yucky. And I realize that's a highfalutin ministerial word, yucky. But it is what it is. There are places where living inclusively, because of how we interpret it through our human experience, leaves us feeling like we need to go take a shower. Now, perhaps that really is just the function of our mentality. Perhaps. So let's talk about this idea of inclusion. And I think it's imperative that we get really clear about the difference between including and inclusion. Including starts with a container. It starts with a limitation. It starts with a point of supremacy, if you will. That this is my container, and it's mine, and you're already outside of it. So now I have to decide if I'm going to include you in it. Nothing about that line of thinking is inclusive. In fact, it's quite exclusive. Inclusion is the effect of creation itself. Do you know if someone dumped a load of gravel in your driveway and salted that load of gravel with enough rough diamonds that if you were to find them, you'd never have to work another day in your life? That chances are you'd still be working until you can't or choose not to anymore. Because quite honestly, rough diamond look very much like the white pieces of gravel that are laying in your driveway right now. And what's included in that piece of rough diamond that looks like a piece of opaque, whitish gravel, grayish gravel, is a diamond. You don't put the diamond inside. The diamond's already in there. How we get to the brilliance of what its natural innate worth is by removing everything that hides its brilliance. And so I invite you to consider inclusion from that perspective. That what we're really doing is removing every belief that prevents us from seeing the innate, inborn, unchangeable brilliance within every, and I do mean every, expression of creation. And perhaps this thing that we talk about as biases are just unexamined beliefs that were handed to us by prior generations. Our karmic thought thread of our ancestors, if you will. Unity never means uniformity. This idea of sameness, it's one of the greatest delusions, really, it's more delusional than it is illusional, that we suffer from. And it's that place within us that doesn't know who we are that wants everybody to be the same as us. Because if we understood the magnificent intentionality of our own exquisitely individualized expression, then there would be no desire within us to have anybody else be just like us. None. And we would be all about expressing that, which is what creation is all about anyway. The whole reason that we have such multiplicity, such diversity of expression within and of the one is because its only desire is to express itself in infinite possibility. That's what you are, beloved. You are an intentional, on purpose, heart's desire of God itself. So is everybody else. We have to stop getting stuck in behavior. We have to get rid of any idea of a comfort zone. It's an interesting conversation to have with folks who are simultaneously complaining about the limitations in their life and at the same time declaring their right to have preferences. Both are true, and perhaps they're intricately connected. Perhaps. Perhaps my preferences are just code speak in human language for my comfort zone that I would prefer you stay away from. That my comfort zone, it's taken me a long time. I spent 60 years carving out this comfort zone. Leave it alone. You have no idea how hard I worked on these preferences. You have no idea how much effort I've put into justifying and rationalizing and convincing myself that this comfort zone is my safe zone without ever admitting that I'm afraid and want a safe zone. I've spent a lot of energy doing this. Don't mess with my comfort zone. Don't mess with my preferences. Maybe it's just me, but I doubt it. You've heard me say this before. It's one of my favorite things to keep aware of. Is that the greatest prison, Viktor Frankl, the greatest prisons that any of us are ever in, or ever will be in, are the prisons of the mind. The most effective prisons are the ones we don't even know we're in because we make no effort to escape. And perhaps my comfort zone, perhaps your comfort zone, is the greatest prison we have ever erected in our thoughts. The idea that we are somehow safe in that container is predicated on an idea, on a belief that there's something threatening outside of that. What? More God? Am I really going to live my life threatened by multiple expressions of God that are different than me? I did, till I realized that's what I was doing. Perhaps this idea of examining our thoughts begins at the furthest edges of our comfort zone. Perhaps what we think is making us safe is making us in pain, perhaps. So what are the solutions? Number one, observation. Just observe your thoughts. Just observe. And I mean, just observe. Don't interpret. Don't extrapolate. Don't make up a narrative about them. Just observe them. Observe how you feel while you observe them. And if you go straight to guilt and shame when you identify your biases or your limited thinking, here's the solution. Ready? I'm only going to say it once. Stop it. Seriously. Seriously. Most of us think we don't know how to stop. It's not true. My sponsor from 12-step recovery 30-some years ago had the brilliant idea to teach me that we know how to stop quite well. Out of nowhere, she's like, you do know how to stop. And I'm arguing with great veracity that, no, actually I don't. And she's like, okay, move your arm up and down. So I'm doing this. And out of the top of her lungs, she screams, stop! Seems I do know how to stop. What we don't know, oftentimes, is now what do I do? Now that I've stopped, what do I do? That's why study is so important in our teachings. Observe, stop. Where do I go from here? Well, what's true? What else is here? I think curiosity has to be the next step. What else is here? If you're studying something in the book, this is the most obvious thing that it's saying, but what else is it saying? Do I have it in context? When you're encountering other people, are you content to do what? We have countless studies that show us that sociologically we form an opinion, an assessment of another human being in the first 3 seconds that we encounter them. Perhaps curiosity might better inform us. Because I assure you, in the first 3 seconds you see me, you are going to see straight, white, male of an age beyond 20. Like I did that, just beyond 20. Okay. That's not really what you see. What you really see is a transgender man who spent 43 years living in a female body. You're not going to see that looking at me. You're going to have some curiosity about who I really am to get to that. You're not going to see my parenting. You're not going to see where I grew up. You're not going to see who I'm married to. You're not going to see any of that in that 3 seconds. What you're going to see is your own thoughts interpreting the picture of me. Those are your biases. Those are the things that you've been taught to believe. Now, there's no guilt and shame in that. That's just kind of how humanity rocks and rolls. Until we don't. Because, see, the same mind that builds the prisons of our biases is the same mind that empowers you to emancipate yourself and to truly live an experience of inclusion, an experience of oneness, an experience of what already exists. You cannot add anything to the infinite. But you can remove the barriers that you've created against experiencing it. That is within your purview. That is within your power. That is the soul of creation itself within you. So observe. Question. Question. And then question again. Stay curious. Go back to that childlike state where everything was a mystery. Everything. Where you explored with abandonment. Go back there. Stay there. Live there. And I promise you, you will live inclusively from there. Let's take this into prayer. Infinite, infinite, infinite everything. Infinite allness. Breath that breathes me. Life living itself in this container I call me. One. Always one. I am that in form. And what is true of me is true of all. And so every expression in form is the divine expressing itself. And so I speak my word, claiming, affirming, declaring that we are in a time of revelation. That the oneness that creation has always been is revealing itself in the mind and experience of each expression of itself as creation. That we are literally revealing our path home to who we have always been. So grateful, so incredibly grateful to know that that which created me creates as me. And so as I speak my word into law, into the very soul of creation, it receives it and simply shouts from the mountaintop of itself, yes, I got this. And it does. And it's already done. And because it's already done, I can release, I can let go and get on about the business of experiencing its unfolding as my life. So I invite you. If anything that I have said this morning resonates with you, if the words of Deborah's prayer earlier resonates with you, if this prayer resonates with you, to join me out loud right where you are as we say together, Amen. Aho. Shalom. Ashe. And so it is.